The wait continues for the return of Roman Reigns. You guys know on the channel, we've done multiple videos now over the past couple months looking at the potential return scenarios for Roman Reigns. There were lots of rumors and reports out there leading up to Money in the Bank last month that perhaps that could be a possibility where we could see the original Tribal Chief make his return to set up a big SummerSlam match. Didn't happen. We mentioned the possibility of, well, if you don't do it then, surely you've got to do it on that June 9th Raw in Phoenix, where you had the World Heavyweight Championship match between Gunther and Jey Uso, featuring the title change, the Ring General, now the champion once again. We were looking at all the options with Seth Rollins cashing in Money in the Bank and all that kind of stuff. Was Roman Reigns going to return then? Well, didn't happen either. But yet, here we are, still waiting for the return of the original Tribal Chief. And now I think we have to undoubtedly be getting closer, because there was another report out there this past week where that basically the wheels were in motion for Roman Reigns to make his return. And if we look at the timeline and everything that's out there now, well, it just pretty much was something that was much more of a slow burn than maybe we would have expected. Because as we talked about, the last time we saw Roman Reigns on WWE television was the Raw after WrestleMania 41, where it was, basically the beginning of this whole sort of dangerous alliance reign for Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman. That's when they added Braun Breaker. We know Bronson Reed has been added to the mix. And it was Roman Reigns and CM Punk on the losing side of that, on that edition of Raw. But we've been waiting and waiting. And now I think we clearly are looking at something where Roman Reigns, yes, has to return very, very soon. And that very soon could be as soon as this upcoming week. We know it's a busy week for WWE. They've got Saturday night's main event coming up on Saturday in Atlanta. They've got the NXT Great American Bash show coming up that afternoon in Atlanta. The all-women's Evolution show returns on Sunday. And so there's a lot going on for WWE. Well, we also know there's a lot going on the outside of that in WWE, in the professional wrestling world, because AEW presents their biggest show of the year, AEW All in Texas. What does all this have to do with Roman Reigns? Well, we are getting closer and closer to the first ever two-night SummerSlam. And the whole basis for this argument of Reigns coming back maybe sooner than this was simply to say, all right, they're going to go ahead and put the wheels in motion for Reigns to have a big match at SummerSlam. Because, again, it is a two-night event. We already know the main event of one of those nights is going to be Cody Rhodes challenging John Cena in a WrestleMania 41 rematch for the undisputed WWE title. And so now, if we're looking at where the other potential main event comes from, well, WWE's teased us a little bit. Perhaps, are we going to get CM Punk challenging Gunther based on their interaction on Raw? Is that something that could play out? There are some other possible scenarios as well. You still got to wonder who is Seth Rollins going to face at SummerSlam because, well, he's facing LA Knight at Saturday night's main event. And perhaps that's where things start to get interesting, right? Because if you're going to do Seth Rollins versus LA Knight at Saturday night's main event, the initial question is, why not do it at SummerSlam? Well, probably because they have something bigger, you would think, planned for Seth Rollins on that particular show. And it may be the thing that we've been talking about for a while now. But again, how do they do it? How do they get Roman Reigns back into the mix here? And how does all this play out? Well, as I said, if you're looking at this just from a WWE standpoint, there are a lot of reasons why I think you could look at this particular scenario playing out now for Roman Reigns. Rollins versus Knight. Saturday night's main event, the whole story for Rollins has been what? Well, it's been the numbers game. They've had the advantage, right? Where you've had Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, of course, Paul Heyman doesn't necessarily get physical during these potential, brawls and all that they have, but you've got these two guys siding with Rollins. There's still the possibility that Rollins going to add another member or two to this stable. Could we see that play out at Saturday night's main event? Because, well, we saw that the last time, right? We saw Bronson Reed be added in sort of a similar fashion on a Saturday night's main event show. Is that going to happen here? Well, if you play the numbers game on this, well, I mean, that puts LA Knight in a position where maybe he finds himself in a spot where even if he were to defeat Seth Rollins, he is, again, at the mercy of this numbers game, even though you've got Sami Zayn, you've got Penta, these guys have been getting involved. Not exactly sure, what's next now with Jey Uso, as he's likely to factor into this, you would think, at some point too. But if you're looking at it there, and you're looking at it from WWE's perspective, it's on NBC. It's prime time, right? And, like it or not, it is on the same day as AEW All In. And I think that if you're WWE and you're looking at this, and you're seeing the possibility of putting a Roman Reigns return as sort of the headline coming out of Saturday, Nothing else, right? You don't want anything else to be the headline. Yes, you're still doing the Goldberg retirement match. That's a big thing in and of itself. But if you're looking at the possibility of loading this show up, knowing that, yes, there is another show going on, it's their biggest show of the year in AEW, and I know people say, well, it doesn't really put a necessarily huge dent in WWE's plans, but it is something where we've seen some of that, right? We've seen some of that quote-unquote counter-programming going on. And so if you want that big headline to be Roman Reigns returns, that's your story. Goldberg's retirement match. You put all those things in that same 2-hour block at Saturday night's main event. I think there's a lot to like about that because it is, again, an NBC primetime show, a huge audience. And remember, the last time on Saturday night's main event, it was Cody Rhodes making his return. That was a huge talking point. You're putting it on that particular NBC platform. And again, I just think that is such an easy sort of way to do this if that's the direction they want to go. Reigns become the biggest talking point rather than anything else that happens on that day in professional wrestling, right? So that it seems like something where you could do that if you're WWE. And I think when you think about it, look, the slow burn, which we've been saying, like I feel like that is kind of the way WWE has done things now over the past while, really during the Triple H era, because they do have all of these shows and not necessarily having to rush it to where Reigns had to come back at Money in the Bank or anywhere around there, knowing that you still have all these different shows you got to build to. Saturday night's main event, SummerSlam, and so forth. Clash in Paris comes up several weeks after that. And so there's a lot of stuff you've got to get to. And so WWE has sort of had to, bring out the board, put this here, put that there, and Reigns' return, I think, at Saturday night's main event would be the thing that makes a lot of sense. And remember, we've said it too. How have we sort of looked at this and we've been wondering, why is it taking so long for Roman Reigns to come back? I mean, we've said it multiple times now. Roman Reigns is as part-time as he's ever been, right? I mean, there have been times in the past where we've seen Reigns take a hiatus, come back, and all that. But now this is a different scenario. Like we are talking about whenever he lost that championship after WrestleMania 40 to Cody Rhodes. That really kind of started the new era of Roman Reigns. We saw him come back, yes, for a couple big programs last year and all that. Yes, came back around for the stuff this year at WrestleMania in the triple threat with Rollins and Punk. And now you've got to keep that story going with Heyman, but it's all been built around the little teases, the hints that Seth Rollins been dropping, the name dropping with Reigns and the island of irrelevancy and all these stuff he's been saying, right? And so that's how they've kept this going, knowing that you're just not in a position anymore where it's not the good old days, where Roman Reigns and the Bloodline are on TV every single week, and you've got that running sort of episodic theme, what's happening next with Reigns and the Bloodline and all this. It's just different now. You got him coming up in the Street Fighter movie. I just announced that this past week. So now that you've got a scenario where if you bring Reigns back at Saturday night's main event, assuming, again, all the rumors that are out there now, they're heating up again. It wouldn't be another month without a Roman Reigns return rumor. You guys know we love them here on the channel. But if you're looking at it from that standpoint, I think you're clearly in a position now where it seems to be that they are setting up that Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins match. Because like I said at the beginning, why would you not do Rollins versus Knight there? Now, you could still say, well, they could perhaps add Rollins into the mix in this World Heavyweight Championship picture with Gunther and CM Punk. Well, it seems to me that the much better option is this, right? Let's say Rollins and Reigns do face off at SummerSlam. And let's say that Roman Reigns wins that match to get his revenge or everything that happened at WrestleMania and right after at the Raw at WrestleMania, after WrestleMania, right? So he's getting his little bit of revenge on Paul Heyman. Well, Rollins still has that briefcase. And so perhaps that same night, or depending on if they do it, let's say they do Rollins Reigns as your main event of night one, you could do Punk and Gunther on night two, and maybe that's where you have Rollins cash in because why? Rollins has said he won't do anything it takes to make sure CM Punk is not the champion. So maybe there is something there that plays out where Rollins is able to cash in, or perhaps maybe, Reigns thwarts him, doesn't allow that to happen, however you want to do it. And so I think that cash in is something that is really intriguing here. And remember, too, that could also play out at Saturday night's main event, where you could have Rollins maybe teasing that cash in. So maybe the match itself with Rollins and LA Knight, maybe that's not exactly where we see a Roman Reigns involvement or something like that. That's another option you have, to where if you want to have potentially Rollins come out and try to cash in a Goldberg-Gunther scenario, so after that match, during that match, however it plays out, well, maybe that's where Reigns, somehow plays a role. But it does seem like you've got, again, multiple options here. If you're going to bring Reigns back this week, it seems like a likely scenario because you're not that far away from SummerSlam now. Yes, at Money in the Bank, we were a little bit further away from SummerSlam. Now, we're talking about this is the time, traditionally here recently, where WWE really starts to heat up. That 1 month period is where they really start to heat up that next, PLE, when you have something as big as SummerSlam. And like we said, this is not just a traditional SummerSlam. This is the 2-night one for the first time ever. You want to make this as big as you can possibly make it. You've already got the headlining match for night 2 with Cody and Cena. And yes, you could say Punk and Gunther could certainly headline on night 1, having Punk go for the championship. But there is such a big appeal, I think, in having a Reigns versus Rollins match, knowing that this is kind of that point in the story where you pretty much need to get to it now. I don't know if you can hold off until next year's WrestleMania, right? We talked about that as a possibility. I just don't think you can hold off that long at this point. So it does seem like the wheels are in motion for Roman Reigns to finally make his return, maybe, a month later than many of us would have expected. But now, again, you don't really have many other options based on how the schedule is structured, where this seems like the prime spot to do it, perhaps pun intended, on prime time on NBC on a Saturday night where, like I said, it's not just WWE's universe. There is another, very big professional wrestling show going on in the United States, and we have seen kind of the fun back and forth between those two promotions. So wouldn't be surprised if that is the big talking point WWE wants to have coming out of Saturday night's main event. Roman Reigns returns to potentially set up something with Seth Rollins at SummerSlam. You guys let me know what you think. Again, there's lots of options on the table still. Do you think Reigns is going to be at SummerSlam? Do you think he's going to have a match there? Or do you think the wait will continue longer and longer now for him? Maybe he doesn't come back for this SummerSlam cycle. But if he does, do you think Saturday night's main event is where we see the return of the Tribal Chief? And how does he do it? Like I said, give me your favorite option here. Do you think it happens in the Rollins LA Knight match or after? Or do you think it's something involving perhaps the Goldberg-Gunther match? Is that a possibility there? Always appreciate your feedback, guys. Let me know what you think about this. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well, and let me know your thoughts on what you think is going to happen with, finally, the return of Roman Reigns.